Hey developers, today we're going to look at 5 things you must know to pass that technical interview. So I know a lot of people are looking at jobs right now. A lot of people have lost their jobs. It's a terrible situation. So I thought maybe I'd make this video and give you guys tips on so you can pass that technical interview. And also, if you're a brand new developer, this is great information. So make sure you watch all the way to the end. Hey, and if you don't know, my name is Eric. I'm a full stack software developer. I'm also an author, and I'm really a big fan of JavaScript, HTML, CSS, especially React, Vue.js, Angular. If you guys are a fan of any of that, I want you to do a couple things for me. First, click that subscribe button, click that little bell button so you can be notified next time I do an upload. And also smash that like button. Smash it now. Okay, hope you did it. All right. Okay, so now let's talk about 5 things you must know to pass a technical interview. Actually, let's have a quick word from our sponsor first. Developers, today's video is sponsored by Dev Mountain. Dev Mountain is an in-person coding and design bootcamp that offers housing for full-time students at no extra cost. They have programs that are between 6 and 16 weeks long, including web dev, iOS, software QA, and UX design. Dev Mountain loves hearing from Program with Erik subscribers, so make sure you click on that link in the description if you or someone you know is ready to dive into coding. So once again, make sure you click on that link in the description and you can learn more about Dev Mountain. Thanks. All right, so here we are. This is 5 things you must know to pass a technical interview. Now, there is so much interview prep out there. If you go to tons of sites, podcasts, videos, everybody's telling you how to prepare for a technical interview. But I kind of wanted to base this presentation a little bit more on some of the soft skills you should know, and then some more general overviews, but some things you may not have thought of before to prepare for a technical interview. So I'm not going to go into how to study for algorithms or whiteboarding, but I'll give you some general strategies that you should use to actually pass these interviews. So let's begin. All right. So if you have ever worked at any place before, kind of like how we have these programming brains that tell us that we need to break down problems. And when you start to look for a job and you're looking at the interview process out there, that's sort of what you need to do. So you need information. The more information you have, better your chances of actually getting the job. So first, research the company on Glassdoor. There's probably a couple of other sites, but I know Glassdoor is pretty popular. So you can go to Glassdoor, see what other people, look at other people doing interviews, how they have passed those interviews, what they're doing, what kind of questions you're going to be getting, and just generally, what's the sentiment about the company? Are people really excited about the company? Are you getting a ton of negative reviews on the company? It's always a good idea to read it. And also, maybe if you see a ton of negative reviews, you may not want to actually apply. Also, a good idea to read the job description. I mean, some of these things seem fairly simple, but you don't realize, I've interviewed people, I've been on both sides. It's really easy to not even look at the job description. And then when people ask you some questions, you're like, what? I don't know anything about that. Well, if you had read the job description, you would have known that is something that we're looking for. So read the job description. And then just get as much information from the recruiter, tech manager. This is before you even talk to anyone, or as soon as you talk to someone, but before you actually go into the in-person or the other types of interviews that happen later on. Try to understand what is expected of you and where you are in the process. So like a typical interview, usually you have a phone interview with a recruiter, you have a technical phone interview, and then at some point usually have an on-site or in-person interview. And then inside that interview, it's going to be a combination of behavioral and technical. Now, there's also sometimes in between that technical interview and on-site, you might have a take-home test. That's really common too. And we'll talk a little bit more about take-home tests a little bit later. But generally, this is kind of the way a lot of companies do it. People like to talk to you on the phone first just to make sure that you're at least somewhat qualified to do the job, and then they want to get you in person. So to make sure you take notes every time you talk to someone, keep a Google spreadsheet open. Keep a note of who you talked to, what you guys talked about, and what the expectations of the next part of the interview process is. You want to be diligent to follow up. So if they say you talk to someone in a phone interview and they say there's a technical phone interview and you don't hear anything for a few days, make sure that you follow up. You don't understand how many technical recruiters just get bombarded with, they're handling like 20 different recruits at one time. It's easy for you to get slipped through the cracks you have to be proactive. If they don't call you back, you need to make sure you talk to your recruiter, whoever the contact is, make sure that they're pushing you through the process. Obviously, if you get to the in-person or you don't make it past the technical interview, there is some companies that will just ghost you, which I don't love. But I think most of them will actually contact you. If you do get ghosted, just understand it's not personal. That's just the way it is. So if you follow up with the company like 1, 2, 3 times and you never hear anything back, you probably got ghosted. And at that point, your interview's over. But you really need to do your due diligence, especially at the beginning of the process, to make sure that you're following up and that the process continues if it can. Hopefully it will. And then sometimes I've done this too. If you get to the point where you've gone through your phone screenings, everything's great, maybe you ace that take-home test, and they're looking to actually bring you in person, see if you are prepared. Ask kind of like what you should expect. Are you expecting algorithm whiteboarding type questions? Are you expecting what should you expect? And then make sure that you give yourself enough time to be ready for it. I don't think you can be like, give me 3 weeks, but maybe if you can give yourself a couple extra days to prepare, that might be a good idea. And most companies will be willing to wait a couple of days. And also, this is kind of an interesting point, but I've interviewed people where I've asked them like, hey, so why are you interested in joining our company? And they'll be like, well, you contacted me. And technically, I guess that's true. Like a recruiter contacted them first, and then they contacted us, and we went through an interview process with them. Yes, we did contact you first, but really, you as a candidate need to sell yourself to the company, not the other way around. Unless you're some amazing developer that's well known in the industry, that has 1 million Twitter followers, that you help build some open source projects everybody's using, most likely you need to sell yourself to the company, not the other way around. It's very rare that a company is going to bend over backwards for you, especially during the interview process. So make sure you keep that in mind. So some things you want to definitely do: be positive, be grateful that you are getting this interview, be excited, have some good energy. Obviously, you don't want to not be yourself, but you want to actually look like, hey, this would be a fun person I would want to work with. Like when they're interviewing you, they're not just interviewing you to see if you can do the job, but they want to say, is this a person I want to be able to hang out with every day for forever, for many, many days, 5 days a week. So you want to kind of want to show your best personality forward. Put the best foot forward as well. So here's a couple of, my second tip is to use the STAR pattern. So as you're going through these screenings and you're talking to people, inevitably, you're going to get questions on your past. So one of the best indicators of your future performance is your past performance. So you should expect questions like, okay, name a situation where you had some difficulties and how did you overcome it? Or you might get a situation like, how did you save the company a lot of money? Or, what did you do when you had a disagreement with a coworker? Or name your most favorite project and how you contributed to it. So kind of think of these questions. You can even Google it. You could probably find a huge list of it. There's also some cliche ones like, what's your weakness? You can find those out there too. And no doubt employers will ask you about those. But at least kind of think about this beforehand. Maybe write a list of them. Google some of these common questions. And then think about these tasks that really make you look good. And then you can use this kind of STAR pattern where first you do the situation task. So you describe the situation and the task and you face in the context of the story. And then you go into the action, what action you took, the results, which is the R in STAR. How do you measure the success for the project? What results did you achieve? And then finally, you make a list beforehand of situations that highlight what you've done well. So that's kind of the STAR way. And also, I've heard this way, you always do it 3 times. So what I mean by that, find at least 3 stories. So and you can even go even deeper into this, try to find 3 stories for every situation. Because you might find you kind of have a situation in your mind, you'll explain it, and then the person will be like, well, do you have something else? They might ask you for a second situation, and you may want to try to make sure you have multiple of these on the top of your head, and make sure it makes you look good, obviously. And maybe practice, if that's something you aren't used to, maybe practice in front of a mirror, practice talking to someone else, do mock interviews with people. If you have a friend that's also applying places, do a quick mock interview just to get an idea of how you're going to be asked these questions and how you can give a great answer to them. Okay, another thing before you go in the on-site interview, practice, practice, practice. So I already talked about practicing maybe with doing a mock interview with someone just on kind of the behavioral type questions. But if you know you're going to get algorithms, or you know this company is known for algorithms, aka FANG, Facebook, Google, Amazon, Apple, you want to, for sure, make sure you practice before you get in front of someone. So that could be like you researching algorithms, buying stuff like Algo Expert. I'm blatantly, I guess you could say I'm going to shill for them. They're an excellent resource. I have a link in the description below. If you click on it and you sign up for them, I get a few bucks. But they have hundreds of algorithm problems. There's also Cracking the Coding Interview. There's also lots of websites out there to kind of test your knowledge on algorithms. So obviously, if you know you're going for a company that does these type of interviews, you want to study them. And you want to study them well enough that you can probably do medium to beginner questions. You may get hit with a hard question in your interview. If you do, don't panic. Try to do as best as you can. But obviously, before you even get on site, you want to interview them. And this may be even one thing you want to do before you even start applying. So if you are looking for that really elite company out there to work at, you may want to spend a month or two just grinding away at algorithms. And I know people hate that thought of that, but that's kind of what you have to do in the modern day to get some of these high-paying jobs in some of these elite companies. Also, there's a whole skill of being able to do take-home tests, writing obviously good, clean code. So you may want to also think about how to do take-home tests. So you may be given a take-home test, and in that case, you want to kind of look it over. First, kind of evaluate how long it will take, and do this at the beginning. Ask for more time if you need it. So if you find that you're super busy and they gave you this huge project to do for a take-home test, it's okay to tell or ask the employer, hey, can you give me another give me another day or two? I don't know if you want to go more than a couple of days. It depends on how big the project is. Say, hey, can I get a couple more days? I need a little bit more time to finish this. That's fine. You can also give them an explanation. Hey, I'm working. I got lots of stuff happening. That's okay too. Almost all employers that give these take-home tests will be very happy that you at least told them, because the worst thing you want to do is turn it in late. Don't turn on these take-home tests late. And then also, before you jump in, kind of get an idea of what patterns you want to use in it. What are the best practices? If they want you to create a React app that connects to a database, displays information, what are the patterns that you may want to use? Do you want to use something like Redux to save the information? Do you want to also, how would you kind of structure that? Keep that in mind before you even start. Also, I think tests and comments are underrated, but I think good employers will notice that you did tests, so try to at least put some of those in. Leave comments in certain places. I would even, if you have time, try to do the take-home test a couple of times. Maybe do a quick and dirty version, and then spend another couple hours and do a much better, well thought out, kind of nuanced version of it. And try to put your best foot forward. And I know sometimes people, just like algorithms, a lot of developers hate doing these take-home tests because they think they're doing free work, or they think that this work they're going to turn in, that they're going to use it on their website. And I think that doesn't happen that often. I know some companies go as far to pay their interviewees to pay them to do these take-home tests. You may be lucky and you may apply for a place that actually pays you to do the take-home test, but most places won't. So keep that in mind too. And also, I think it's okay to research it, but don't cheat. Obviously, this isn't school. You're not trying to copy and paste a bunch of code. We joked around in my last podcast. I have a podcast called Self-Taught or Not, where Dylan was saying people we're actually interviewing someone, and they were saying people are so dumb. They copy code from online and they forget to take out the comments. Sometimes they have the other person's name is still on the comment section somewhere. And it just takes 10 seconds for someone to Google and find out that you just copied a bunch of code. So obviously don't do that. And you'll be okay. Also, there is you might find being an interview that has like a take-home test, but it's live. you may be live with someone on the line at the same time, and they'll be watching you code. I mean, I've seen that a few times too. Or they'll send you to a website where you have to sort of do a kind of an online test in real time, and sometimes it's like a combination of multiple choice, but maybe it also has like a coding test at the end. So once again, as you start applying places, these things you start commonly seeing kind of patterns. Some sites will have you go to do a take-home test. Some sites will send you to a place to do an online test, and you'll just kind of get used to all the different things. And as you'll do them more, you'll get better at them. All right. So during an interview, so I could have a whole 2-hour video on how to deal with the actual on-site interview, but I will give you a few just quick little tips here. Obviously, during the interview, you want to stay confident. You want to smile. You want to make eye contact. You want to kind of be confident, obviously. You want to show them that you will be fun to work with, that you're prepared, but you understand what you're doing. And you want to, a lot of times, unfortunately, people really do judge a book by its cover. That's kind of an old cliche, but I've actually sold books, and people won't buy a book if the cover is a different way. And unfortunately, people all have different biases, some good, some bad biases. So you want to kind of put your best foot forward. Obviously, you don't want to go to a job interview wearing sandals and shorts. Even if everybody in the office is wearing sandals and shorts, you probably want to be just one level higher than everyone else. That doesn't mean you come to the office with a 3-piece suit on, but you maybe, put some nice slacks on, a nice button-up shirt. I mean, I think most developers are okay with that if you go to an interview like that. Also, during the interview, obviously you don't want to lie, and you can say what you don't know, but be aware. I've been in interviews where people have been way too casual about that, and then every question they're like, well, I don't know. That's a really bad sign. If you keep on saying I don't know over and over again, you're not going to get the job. So I would say, obviously, if you don't know it, try to come up with at least an idea of something that's very similar that you do know of, that would kind of relate to it. There's also kind of the filibuster technique where you just keep talking and talking, and if you're in a situation where you don't know enough answers, you could just keep talking. And I've seen good interviewers will notice that and stop you and cut you off and ask another question. Some will just let you go on. But mostly you want to be concise, you want to obviously be correct, and you want to be honest. If you get a whiteboarding, now there's a lot of techniques and a lot of ways you can deal with whiteboarding interviews. A couple things I want to talk about. For the most part, you want to talk out loud as your code goes up on the board. You don't have to say every little tiny thing you're doing, but it's a good idea at the beginning. After they give you the problem, you kind of explain it to the interviewer. You ask questions, make sure you understand exactly what they're looking for, and then you may even want to put some pseudocode up on the board. And then if you have time, I'm going to say this. If it's very complicated and you're not sure and you put the pseudocode up and that takes 20 minutes, that's kind of a bad sign. But if you put it up on the board and maybe it takes 5 to 10 minutes, that's a good sign. Then you can just jump right into the code. It's okay to ask help if you get stuck. Don't worry about it. Just be like, hey, am I on the right path here? This is what I'm thinking. Do you have some other way? And a good interviewer will kind of guide you the right direction. They may even end up helping you a little bit more than you expected. So don't worry about that. If you're completely and ultimately stuck, then that's one thing. But usually they should guide you in the right direction. And of course, like anything else, you should break the problem down, find the easiest case first, try to work on that, and then look at all the edge cases. And once again, a good interview person will tell you, well, that's interesting, but what about this case? And then you can kind of figure out that case. Obviously, if you have enough time, you want a complete solution that covers all edge cases. But I think when you're first starting out in the first 20 minutes, you want to at least come up with a solution that may not have all the edge cases, and then go back and add them as possible. And also, you'll also find this problem where if you are one of those people who can knock out one of these algorithm whiteboarding problems in 20 minutes and you still have another 25 minutes, they will give you a harder problem, or they'll add some sort of twist that will make it even harder, and it will take all the time up. So don't worry if that happens. That's really common. And obviously, don't panic. I actually went on an interview once where they asked me how I did, and I think I said at the end, like, oh gosh, I messed up. Like, I was sort of panicking at the end. I didn't think my solution was very good. I think the interviewer picked that up. Of course, this is my next tip. Obviously, try again. So interviewing is a skill. It takes practice to get good at it. You may hear some people who, on their first try, they got a job at Google. They had no problem. But most of us fail our interviews at the beginning. We have to keep trying, keep practicing. Keep a notebook of every interview you take. You can also create an Excel spreadsheet. Make sure that if you ever have an interview, again, you understand those problems they asked you on that other interview, so you'll be able to do it. You actually find that smaller companies you'll probably get very similar questions. Some companies are actually pretty lazy. All they do is Google like interview questions, and that's how they end up coming up with the technical interview questions they ask you. If you can Google those same questions or anticipate those questions, you do much better. But if you kind of go to a bunch of interviews, you're going to start seeing patterns. You're going to start seeing similar questions, especially if you're in the junior level. Once you get to senior level, I mean, the sky's the limit. They might ask you a design question. They might ask you an algorithm question. It could be all over the place. But when you're in the junior level, usually you get a lot of similar questions that you can answer. And obviously, don't beat yourself up if you don't get the job. I did that when I first started applying. The first job I applied for was at GE. I went through an all-day interview, and I could tell by like the third or fourth interview with a different team that I wasn't doing well. I remember doing a whiteboarding part where I got the problem right, but they brought up a edge case that I didn't think of, so that was kind of discouraging. And I knew by the end of it that it wasn't good. I remember I went to lunch. They took me out to lunch during the interview, and everybody was talking around me, and no one was talking to me. And I could tell right away that this wasn't doing well. And I always like to think that our best days are ahead of us, and everything will work out for the best. So I'm gonna have a bonus. This is tip 6. I said I had 5, but I actually have 6. Negotiating salary. Once again, this could be a huge topic. I could do a whole video on this. But even before you get to that point where they're ready to give you an offer, usually a lot of smart recruiters will ask you for your salary or salary range. Don't give them a salary if you can. So try to divert the question. Say it depends on the total package that comes to you. Depends on what where you are. You say you need some more information. Try not to give a number first, because what happens if you give a number first, that anchors you to that number. Then they know what number they can offer you. If you say, just a round number, I'm making $50,000 a year, then they know if they can offer you $65,000 a year, you're probably going to take it, because that is way more than you are making now. But let's say normally 65 is the low end, but 85,000 would have been where they normally hire people. You're a complete disadvantage because you gave your number first. Never give the number first. And if you have to, some recruiters really, really push on this, then just give them a range. And also just aim high. Like if you make $50,000 a year, do your research, find out how much this company pays normally. You can usually use Glassdoor. You can also kind of just guesstimate from the area you live in. And there's just so many websites out there. Give them a range, a higher end range, like between 85,000 to 150,000. If they ask you for how much you're making now, your salary, how much you're making now, it depends on some states. If you're in the United States, it's actually illegal for some recruiters to ask you that. So maybe you're in a state you can be like, legally I can't tell you, which hopefully the recruiter knows that. If you're not in one of those states, then I would avoid giving that amount too. So I would avoid telling you how much your expectations are for your salary and how much you make. I guess I should just make both of those are similar. And I always tell people this, always, always, always negotiate. Doesn't matter if you're a junior developer coming right out of college, or you're getting your first developer job, or you've been in the industry for 10 years, there's almost no reason not to negotiate. You're literally leaving like thousands of dollars out of the equation from how much you're going to get paid. So in other words, if you're brand new, there's almost no reason to, but if they give you an offer of $10,000, ask for $20,000. Maybe not double the offer, but ask for a little bit more. See if they're willing to negotiate at all. If they say, no, this is it, we can't go anything more, then you can just say yes or no at that point. But it's always a good idea to always negotiate. Like, there's almost no reason not to. If a company pulls your offer because you negotiated, you wouldn't want to work for them anyways. It's just, there's no reason not to. There's only couple of caveats. There's a couple of companies that specifically say in their company culture when they hire you, I'm thinking of a couple of companies here that will actually say they don't negotiate at all. And this is the number. And usually they're pretty public about it, and they tell you the number that they will offer you before you even get to the point they offer you the money or offer you a job. But most of the time, you always negotiate, and you should always do it. Even if you don't have, I keep hammering this home, even if you're a brand new developer, you should try to negotiate. You can look up how much companies pay. There's a great site called levels.fyi. So if you're doing for a large tech company, check out the salaries. It even tells you per rank. So there's a SDT1 at Amazon is equivalent to, I don't know, something in Google's world. And then there's a bunch of other companies. Look to see if people have submitted their salaries to there. It's probably pretty accurate. I don't know if it's 100% accurate, but it's better than nothing. And so you can kind of get an idea of what companies are paying. Also keep in mind that salary isn't everything. There's also bonuses, and there's also stock options. So keep that in mind, that some companies will offer you maybe a lower salary but a higher bonus, or a lower salary and higher stock options. Now, right now, the market is crap. So you may not, maybe stock options isn't as valuable to you right now, but maybe in 4 years, they'll be worth a lot more because the market will go up. And see what the rules are on how long it takes for those stock options to vest. Sometimes you have to be at the company for 4 years before you get all of them. Sometimes there's a 1-year cliff, so you have to be there for 1 year to get any stock options. So you may think this is an amazing offer that you got a $200,000 job, but if you don't stay the whole year, you basically are getting paid $150,000 because the other $50,000 is in stock. So if money is off the table, if you find out that you can't negotiate, or they're willing to stick to their guns and they're not willing to change anything on the amount that they give you, you could try this. You can ask for more paid time off if they have a 2-week policy. See if you can get maybe a 3-week. You can ask if you can work from home. I think this is really popular nowadays, especially with everything going on. More companies may be more willing to hire people that work from home. Maybe you can work from home twice a week or 3 times a week. It doesn't have to be full time. Also, there's also a lot of amenities companies offer, like paying for your gym or cell phone. You might be able to negotiate to see if they would do some of that. You could try it out. Maybe that's something they'll do. Maybe they won't do anything, but it's worth asking. And the best position you can be in is if you have multiple offers. And that seems to something with a lot of employers. If you can come to them and say, and sometimes they'll ask you, like, do you have any other offers? If you can get 3 or 4 offers in, you can boost up your salary like 2 or 3 times. If they really want you and they know other companies want you, then you can get a lot more money. And so if you can kind of strategize and apply for 3 or 4 high-end jobs at the same time and then play off of them each other, then you can make a lot more money. All right, so I want to say right now, if you've made it all the way to this part of the video, I really appreciate it. But if you're going through a hard time right now, I actually have a course called Create Awesome Vue.js Apps with Nuxt.js. Normally, it's not an expensive course. It's like $30. I'll give it to you for 50% off. You just click on the link in the description below, and you can get that. Also, if you just lost your job or anything, I'll get you that course for free. Just DM me on Twitter, and if you haven't followed me at ErikCH, and I'll give you the course for absolutely for free. You know, I don't want to I'm not trying to make a bunch of money off this. I'd rather have you, if you have just lost your job or going through a hardship, I'd rather give you the course for free. All right, so thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Leave a comment below. I didn't mention that at the beginning, but I should have. Leave a comment below. Let me know what you think. I appreciate it. Bye.